Vancouver Hockey Show, Andrew Wadden alongside the Healthy Scratches, Nic Hauka and Jake Fraser. This is the trade deadline edition. We're a little late with this one, guys, but just wanted to absorb it all because so many things happened with the Vancouver Canucks, right? Not really. Canucks making one move, not at the deadline. Carson Soucy headed off to the New York Rangers for a coveted third-round pick, although it is San Jose's pick, so it is low in the draft, at least in that round. But guys, I think Canuck fans are pretty disappointed right now. Brock Besser remains a Canuck, and he's a pending UFA, as we all know, and no real big splashes. I think it was going to be far-fetched for Elias Pettersson to be on the move, but I think if somebody had blown their socks off, they might have been able to do it. But start with you, Nick. Let's just start with Besser. Are you surprised? Because I know last time we spoke, I asked you if he'd be a Canuck this time, or the next time we spoke, and you said, I don't think so. So kind of amazing that he is.
Yeah, bad business in my opinion. I think if you're a Canucks fan, like you're probably really mad at this organization for continually taking shortcuts on doing the proper thing to run a team, right? This team needs a full reset, and they're taking a shortcut. Also, with the Besser thing, now you're in this situation where you don't move him. You should be singing his graces to the media.
Oh,
Patrick
yeah.
Alvin comes out and has those comments indicating he's not worth anything. What are you doing? Are you serious right now? Like I heard after, I think it was Farhan who asked the question. Yeah. I heard just kind of like the sound in his voice, like, oh, okay. And then he asked his other question, like he was in shock about those comments. If you're in this position, you want to re-sign him now. Like you have to. You cannot lose a player like this for nothing. And I think those comments might have just pushed Besser's camp over the edge. I wouldn't come back after hearing that. And also, those comments are BS. You're telling me Brock Besser's not fetching you a first round pick in a player when Anthony Beauvillier is getting you a second, Luke Shen is getting a second and a fourth. Like, this market, people were overpaying for players. I guarantee you could have got something for Besser. So that, you're not selling me on that, Patrick. I'm sorry.
No, for sure. Like, I can't imagine that there wasn't at least one team that came to the table with a first round pick for Brock Besser. There were a lot of reports that I've seen that are saying teams were trying to drag out like Tom Wielander or Jonathan Lekaramaki. That you can hang up the phone and you can negotiate. It sounds like the team just decided to be comfortable letting Besser walk at the end of the year. And that doesn't make any sense. I think we all know that some of that may have came from the top. They want that playoff revenue. And I mean, that it's just frustrating because it feels like this is just how the Canucks are every single year. You know, last year things were looking like they were going to turn around, and then it's back to the same old Canucks. It's really frustrating to sit back and witness, and just, if you're a fan of the team, like, there's not a lot of hope moving forward that things are going to change. I think a lot of people thought that there was going to be big change coming when they hired Jim, when they hired Patrick Alvin, and you know, it just doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the blue line and how they've sort of reshaped that blue line, and so you got to give credit where credit is due. But this is just an absolute mistake. You cannot let Brock Besser walk at the end of the year. Not only that, you can't make the comments that Nick referenced there by Patrick Alvin, just trying to suppress this player and his value. Does he think that that's going to be a good tactic when they go to the negotiating table to perhaps try to re-sign Brock Besser? If I'm Brock Besser, I'm throwing up deuces. I'm out. Like, at this point, screw you guys, especially at free agency, guys. We know people get overpaid in free agency. And let's see who's even going to hit the market right now. We were talking before we lit up the mics here, looking at the guys potentially that could be free agents come July 1st. You know, Mitch Marner obviously jumps off the page there. Someone like Sam Bennett, Nick Ehlers. But are these guys even going to hit the market? Right? Are there teams? I don't think Marner is. I think Toronto is going to re-sign him. Now, they might have a bit of a difficulty because there is some rumors out there that his name was floated in a potential Mikko Rantanen return. But, you know, things can be mended with money, right? And when you throw a shit ton at him, I think you might be able to lock up the player. But when it comes to Besser, you guys are absolutely right. Now, their hands are a bit tied. They did have a 10-team no-trade that he has right now. But we all know those can be massaged. There could be another team that could come over the top, with an offer, and then you perhaps go to Besser and say, look, this team, it's not on your list, but they're offering us this. Would you go? Who knows? And I think that is maybe with the Carson Soucy return, which we didn't find very overwhelming, but at the same time too, he kind of did hold the cards. He had to be convinced to go in the trade, right? So maybe just getting a 3rd round pick for that wasn't the best, but it also moves out the contract. But with Besser, and you talk about those comments, if I'm him, I'm testing the waters at that point. Just if it is dollars that you're looking for, I think he could find them. If it's a winning organization that perhaps that you want to go to, maybe you might take less. But at the same time, too, guys, like, it's almost insulting what Patrick Allvin came out and said. And Patrick Allvin's very blunt. I'll give him that. He didn't beat around the bush when it came to, what was happening there with Besser. But to say that they couldn't get more than a 1st round pick, I don't know. I'm kind of calling bullshit on that. What about Elias Pettersson, though? Because we did float, listen, maybe it's just best to try to move him while he has no trade protection and to, see what you could get, maybe even in like a Rantanen deal. I know that's probably where was off the table because Dallas came in with a contract offer, and, there are perks of playing in Texas. But I am wondering, if we could perhaps get into Patrick Allvin's phone. I am wondering, Jake, if there was a deal out there for Elias Pettersson that made him go, maybe I can do this. But I'm also wondering, though, if his hands were tied from what Nick said with the people up top, maybe perhaps pulling the strings.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounded like there was something on the table because I think it was Cam Robinson from Elite Prospects made that report about the Devils being interested. And yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. They just had Jack Hughes go down, but at the same time, I don't know, like, I was on the trade PD train, but what are you realistically going to get for him? He's at an all-time low value right now. He's not playing well. And if teams are trying to get Willander, Lecker, Mackey out of a Besser deal, they're probably doing the same out of a Pettersson deal too, right? So I don't mind that he's still on the team. I think hopefully just having the weight lifted off of his chest of not having to deal with trade rumors and just being able to finish out this year, go out and prove that he still can be that $11.6 million player. I'm hoping that he can really turn it around here. And I mean, the last game that they played, he did look a lot better for sure too.
It was more than
yeah. I was just gonna say, I hate the cherry picking though, Nick. You know what I mean? Like the guy's got what I looked it up here, 7 points in a 17 game stretch. His first goal since January 21st. He's got 3 points since the start of February. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I get it. Everybody wants to see it, but like, he is not out of the woods at all, Nick.
No. Well, him scoring a power play goal shouldn't be a story, right? That should just be but that should be a once every 3 game occurrence, right? Like, that should be a thing. I will say I did think he played a lot better, and it wasn't just the goal. So that was nice to see, but we need to see it every single night, or I'm not going to be happy. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about another comment Allvin made about the reason they didn't make any deals was because of the last game had something to do with it. You beat the Anaheim Ducks by a goal. The Ducks.
And they lost to them the game before
cares?
that when they fixed them.
Who cares?
Yeah.
That is the team you need to beat 10 out of 10 times, who you just lost to on the road. If you had beat Vegas and manhandled them, sure, maybe I could see that. What are you doing? This is just awful process by this team. It's
but even if
frustrating.
Even if you beat Vegas, though, that's one game. It does not matter. You should not be basing the rest of your season around one hockey game. Vegas could come out and shit the bed. I don't care who you beat. You should not base your trade deadline and rest of your season off of one game. This team's ceiling right now is to be bounced in the first round and hopefully sneak out one win against the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, see. But then you get your 2 home playoff games.
Yeah, right? That revenue. You need that revenue, right?
Even though apparently it's shared, I heard. But I heard it's like I don't know. I heard it's like shared with the league or something. Yeah, but this organization just takes shortcuts. It's since Mike Gillis has been gone, right? Anyone who's come in, it's shortcut, shortcut, shortcut. There's one person who has been in the building the
Yeah.
whole time.
Yeah.
So I'm no fucking Scooby Doo, but I can put two and two together. And Jinkies, I don't think there's a mystery on our hands. I
Yeah.
think we kind of know what's going on here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's like when they pull the mask off and it's Francesco,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And since the Four Nations, they're what, 3-4? Like they're getting nowhere. They're just literally getting nowhere. And as we record this here, it's Sunday morning, March 9th. They play against Dallas this evening, 20 games remaining, still 1 point out of a playoff spot. But they're just, again, it's almost like default, like I said before in the last pod, because they're just flip-flopping right now with essentially Calgary, but then you've got Utah sniffing around as well. And yeah, it's just one step forward and then one step back. They're just not getting anywhere. So you're right. They're like a rudderless ship right now, trying to get themselves eked into the playoffs. And you're right. Like, I liked the last game against Minnesota. I did like that. But can they follow that up now, today against Dallas, a team that, is probably pretty pissed off after, essentially getting their ass handed to them against the Oilers last night. I know they made a comeback in the game, but it wasn't looking good early there for this new look sort of Dallas Stars team. I'll start with you on this one, Jake. Are you surprised that P.S. Suter is still a Vancouver Canuck? And not only that, because of the fact that he is still a Vancouver Canuck, do you think there's maybe an extension coming for him?
I am surprised that he still is. I mean, you look at what the Leafs gave up for Scott Laughton. I thought that was a pretty comparable deal for what you could have gotten for Suter. Like, Suter's around 20 goals right now. He's killing penalties. I think he's on their first PK unit right now too. So he's a valuable player and would be a valuable rental to a team trying to go on a run. But I wonder what he's going to fetch in free agency. And so I wonder what he would get with an extension. Like, the Canucks obviously have him on a very team friendly deal right now. So he's probably going to want to go get a bag, right? Like, I don't think he's ever made over $2 million in his career. So
he's 1.6 right now.
Yeah. So if I were him, I'd be testing free agency. You're coming off of a career year. You're proving that you can be a good middle six, center, winger. Like, he plays both. He can kill penalties. He can be on that second power play unit. So if I'm him, I'm testing free agency for sure.
He did actually. He had a 3.25 contract, 2-year deal, $6.5 million from the Red Wings. But now he's fallen down from grace. But yeah, you're right. Like, with these numbers that he's got right now, 16 goals, 13 assists, 29 points. Like, that's better than Scott Laughton, actually. Those are better numbers than Scott Laughton. And not only that, like, Scott Laughton doesn't have the defensive game that P.S. Suter has. So yeah, very interesting to see exactly what the school of thought is for the Canucks when it comes to P.S. Suter. 28 years old. So, like, he's not old, he's not young, but he is re-signable. And he's, 28 this year. Oh no, sorry, he'll be 29 this year, as his birthday's in May. So I don't know, Nick. Like, to me, I'm like, yeah, all right. If you aren't going to trade him, then you do have to sign him. But I don't know if you want him for $3 million, if that's perhaps what he could fetch, in free agency.
Yeah, well, I don't think he really fits their realistic timeline right now, right? Like,
so then why didn't you move him then?
Well, I think we know the answer to that.
Yeah, there you go. Fold the mask off again.
But like I was gonna say, he might not fit the timeline, but with how this team is operating and has been for so long now, I bet you they re-signed him. I would say so, and they'll probably have to overpay him a little bit, but he's a very valuable center winger who can score, right? Like, those don't grow on trees.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably going to re-sign him. You're going to have lots of money because Brock Besser's coming off the books, and after those comments, he's not going to be re-signing with you. So you can have plenty of money to spend on worse players. No offense to Pius Suter, I do really like him, but
if Besser does go to market, guys, and if Besser's just wants to get the biggest bag that he can, what do you think he's worth on that open market, and what do you think a team would pay for him? And I mean, like, putting all 31 other teams on the board there in terms of like, he doesn't care where he goes. He just wants to get the biggest bag possible. What do you think, Jake? What do you think he could fetch?
I mean, I think he's probably looking at around 8x7 if he were to go to a contending team. But if he's looking for, like, if he goes to Chicago or something, or San Jose, I could see them handing him maybe $9 million, especially if Mitch Marner's off the market.
Yeah.
If Sam Bennett stays in Florida, Ehlers stays in Winnipeg, if he's the number one guy on the market, I could really see him getting around that $9 million mark.
I 100% agree. I was actually going to say Chicago too.
But San Jose might be a nice place to go. They got a good looking young team. They work hard, and they got some nice young pieces, and Besser might fit well there actually.
And I think he'd actually fit really well with like the good young skaters there in Celebrity and Will Smith. So I think that actually would be a really good fit for him. I could see them overpaying for him quite a bit and getting maybe 3 good years out of him before he's not exactly a top 6 player. Still good on the power play. He always will be. I've been kind of sad they put him back in the bumper spot on the power play. I like him on the wall, but I could see a team paying about 9 for him.
What about the Soucy deal? We sort of glossed over it a little bit. And again, like, it does feel like he held the cards because he had to approve the trade, right? And then apparently JT Miller reached out to him with a bit of a pitch to go to the Rangers. I mean, a good spot for, I think, Soucy to go to as well, because that is a team that, although they're hovering around the playoff bar right now, I don't think if they sneak in, a team wants to see them in the first round, because they have a lot of star power, as we know, and they also have one of the best goaltenders in the league. But if you're Carson Soucy, I think maybe, a change of scenery might have been a good thing for him, especially with all the drama that surrounded the Canucks this year. But at the same time, I think for the Canucks, and again, you got to give credit where it's due, and we've been shitting all over the management here, but like, just moving that contract, I think was a win, Nick, for the Canucks.
100%. Like, no issue with that deal at all. You can look at similar defensemen that were traded, and there was more that was they got more out of that, right? Like Luke Schenn getting a second and a fourth. But again, with the contract, like, you just want to get off of that. I had no problem with just getting a third. Again, he had the no move too, so I think that was a good deal. No issue with that. I think that was very good business, and I was so excited after that deal for more good business, and I was disappointed once again.
Yeah. 20 games remaining, Jake. 1 point out of a playoff spot, as mentioned. Same points percentage right now as Calgary, who they are chasing. Calgary getting a big dub over Montreal last night in a brilliant game from Dustin Wolf. But like, realistically here, I mean, I'm saying this out loud, but it feels like, that second wild card just really is all that the Canucks can hope for. And then a date with the dreaded Winnipeg Jets. But let's keep in mind, the Jets do have their playoff gaffes, right? And they've been sort of in this situation before. I don't know if they've been this dominant before going into the playoffs. But, I guess that's the best that Canuck fans can hope right now, is just to, dive into that first round against the best team in the league and just sort of hold your nose.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of, I definitely don't see what I saw last year, where I thought, oh, maybe they can get by Edmonton, go through to the third round, maybe squeak by Dallas and go to the Cup final. Like, I don't know, everything was going right for them. Now it's like, hopefully they can win one playoff game and not get swept by the Winnipeg Jets. Like, I don't have a lot of hope for this team this year. We've been saying it for a while. This season's just got to be right off, and you just got to start looking forward to next year.
What if, hear me out. What if Kevin Lankinen channels his 2010 inner Yarrow Halak, and this team that has no right to even they're an 8th seed and they don't deserve to even really be in the playoffs, just makes the conference finals? That's the only path to success I see, is Lankinen playing like a god and just every bounce going the Canucks way. Like, there's no chance, right?
Yeah. I forgot too that the Blues are right there as well. The Blues are right there with the Canucks. Now they're about 25% in points percentage behind them. Not 25%, 25 points, that is, behind them. But they're 7-1-2 in their last 10. So the Blues are making a bit of a push here as well. And we'll see who takes it. Who gets that final playoff spot. in the West. I again, with a 7-point sort of cushion between Calgary and Minnesota right now, I think that Central team has that locked up, but maybe the Canucks can make a push to try to get that third spot in the Pacific. We'll see, but regardless of what happens here, guys, it is going to be tough sledding for the Canucks to get into the playoffs, and then whatever opponent they have to face, whether it be the Winnipeg Jets or the Edmonton Oilers, who knows, but going to be tough for the Vancouver Canucks to move on in these playoffs. But they moved on from the trade deadline, and they had a 3rd-round pick to speak for it, and that is all. So we'll move on from this podcast, see what the Canucks can give us here in the next 20 games. For the Healthy Scratches, I'm Andrew Wadden. Thanks for listening, everyone.